Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself, Sloth and Mike today. And it's a little bit of a different video. We're going to be doing our end of season, basically player ratings, where we're going to be ranking on a tier list every player from last season based on their individual performances throughout that time in all competitions. So without further ado, lads, let's get into it. Right, lads, here we go. Here is the tier list. We've got outstanding, solid, average, poor, and terrible. And yeah, as again, what we mentioned is based on all competitions. So don't hold back with your judgment. And first up, it's probably another controversial one straight off the bat, which is Thomas Souček. What are you guys thinking immediately?
Poor. I've just got nothing else to say. I don't think he's been average. I think he's been poor. Got better towards the end of the season. But to be honest, is it better because the rest of the season was so bad? It's good defensively, awful in every other aspect of play, pretty much.
Yeah, Sloth, would you disagree with poor? Would you put him in poor?
It's hard not to disagree. I think, I don't think he's been as bad as so many make out. I do think he's been let down by this perceived attempt to play different football. But I do kind of struggle that he's been a constant this season and, we've won a competition. Can I really say that a player who's been a constant in the side, and that's
in the conference league, he wasn't really a mainstay, was he?
But he was when it mattered.
But I'll put it to you: was he more deserving of minutes than other players? Because if he wasn't, then surely that's an average to a solid season. If other players deserve to play above him over the majority in the course of the season, that has to be poor, regardless of his standing within the team.
Yeah, I think as well for his standards, maybe it's poor because we know how he can play, we know what he can do. So
yeah. I think
he's go on then, chuck him in poor.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
Like Oliver Twist.
Next up, Tilo Kehrer, my guy Tilo. I would personally say he's had between average and like lower end of solid for me personally, but I know a lot of fans probably disagree with that. I think he's been very good and he's had to play in multiple positions as well this season, even left back. So I think for 10 mil we signed him for, 9-10 mil. I think he's been a solid, well, it's not based on signing, but I think he's had a very solid season, I would say. I don't think there's been too much wrong with him. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think given the disruption of the defence, that's something you have to take into account as well, particularly with Aguerd and his injury. I think he's been pretty solid. I do think he's got those moments of madness in him, but it wouldn't be you wouldn't be a West Ham defender if you didn't have a moment of madness in you. So
true.
I'm gonna say solid, just because he was a bit of a bargain, and it does seem like he is now a really sort of beloved member of the squad, and his performances have stepped up in the past few months. So it's quite it'd be harsh to call it an average, I think.
We'll basically do it as well. So like top of solid, like we'll do them in order in each category. So I won't imagine he'll be near the top of solid. I think he'll be more towards the bottom. But Mike, would you put him in solid? Would you put him in average?
Yeah, so I guess I'll be the advocate for the other people that will probably be against him and say the reasons why you would probably say more average than solid is because obviously he has made a number of mistakes over the season. He has struggled at times to settle and has looked out of place at times in the Premier League with the pace and so on. However, my own personal opinion is he's been solid in the sense that he's been incredible off the pitch. You can see that with anything, whenever there is something being shown behind the scenes with West Ham, he's in the middle of it with those players. All the celebrations was completely in there. Came on in the final for Zuma. We didn't even notice him coming on or change to the defence because it was just a seamless change and continuation of that defence. When he played it right back and towards the end of the season, he was incredibly solid. And the game against Arsenal was one of the best defensive performances we've seen throughout most of the season from any of our players in that 2-2 draw. So I think I can understand why people would say average to poor. I don't. I think poor is completely unnecessary. In all honesty,
I think he's top of average or very low solid. That's where like
yeah,
we can
and
change this as we go. But
yeah,
I
I'd say
think
solid is about right. To be honest,
I think for a player to come in and play those positions, to just do
yeah,
what your manager asks, I think that's a sign of someone who who's had a decent season, who's had a good solid season, because it's not his normal game, but there's a reason he's there for Germany, and he more than stepped up in it. So I'd say,
yeah, I would agree.
Solid.
Let's stick in there for now. Next up, another signing from the summer was Emerson. He's had a bit of an up and down season. Come good, obviously, when it mattered in the Conference League final. I think he got man of the match in that game, other than when it was given to Bowen for his goal. But mixed opinions on this one, because my opinion of him changed throughout the season as well. And then obviously put in that really good performance in the final. Where would you guys put him in terms of the kind of what you expected him to do this season and what he actually did?
I think it's fair to say he had an average season. It was, neither here nor there. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. He had some very good games. He had a couple of frustrating games, maybe. But I think average is probably about right based on the minutes played and the fact that he didn't necessarily do much wrong and he's never really done much to set it alight. So I think average is a very good place, and I think he will potentially next season be a solid player for us.
Slough, would you agree?
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think there was a lot of questions when we signed him, and I think particularly a fair number of his performances where he just looked a bit ineffective, particularly for what we've been crying out for in terms of upgrading Cresswell. But he turned it on when it mattered, and I think that kind of balanced it out a bit.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I'd put him in average as well. So that's good. We're in agreement with that one. Next one, Flynn Downs. May cause a little bit of a split, but what do you guys think? Because he hasn't played too many minutes in the Premier League, but he was quite a vital component of our early Conference League run with the group stages. So considering what we bought him for, what would you guys assess his season as?
I don't want to be too hard on the guy. It is difficult to come into such an established midfield, and particularly when the manager has such a set midfield and doesn't want to change that regardless of performances. So we've seen him play in that further advanced position as well, which we know he's not used to, but he tries hard.
Where are we putting him? I think he's had an average season, I would say.
Yeah,
what he came in for.
Yeah, I think he's never put in a bad performance as such.
Like, if you remember at the beginning of the season, a lot of fans wanted him to start in the Premier League because of how good his Conference League performances were.
Well, yeah, I think that is very generous, but yeah, I'd say average. I do think that there was probably better value for money out there. I do think we could have signed better players, but that's not a mark on him. So I'd go average.
Mike, what are you saying for
Flynn?
Average.
There's nothing more really to say on it, to be honest.
Above or below Emerson?
Below.
Yeah, I would agree. Ben Johnson.
Feel for the lad. It's been a poor season. I think he knows it.
I would argue terrible. Personally.
I think there are other contributing factors, which is why I would not say terrible. One of those being a breakdown in relationship at the club. So,
yeah.
If you want to compare it to last season, then yes, you would say terrible.
Yeah.
Last season he was very much a solid player. Don't care.
That's what I kind of judge it on, because he was so much better. Like,
Frankie, you don't want to tread that ground with the few who are coming up. Come on.
I know, but it's like the baseline I have in my head of Ben Johnson and like the potential he had when he first started to develop. He's really gone backwards.
But again, I think it's that point you make then has to be. Then you have to look at the fact that the potential he showed was predicated on the fact that he were playing football games and developing by playing games. He's not been allowed to do that. And when he has come in, he's been parachuted into left back, right back, right centre back, playing in position, not really ever getting a chance to actually develop in a single position, despite showing last season the majority of the time he was our best fullback. So that's why I wouldn't say it's terrible, because I think in actual fact his development has been stunted and has been marred by a lack of conviction in which to give him a chance when he was actually deserving of it. And also there's been a breakdown in relationship, which I think has caused, I guess, maybe less motivation in which to play to the same levels for the same manager as previously. I know people will go, well, you're a paid professional. But again, we've all worked with managers we don't like or don't get on with, feel that we're alienated by, and we don't work as hard. So it's all very well saying, oh, I get paid this, you do that. But we've also got to look at it in a real world example. If you were in the same situation, you would also not necessarily be down in tools, but not necessarily giving your everything or able to give your everything, because you're lacking the confidence and support and a support network that is going to allow you to push on. So for me,
I think that's what's shattered him the most is the confidence, and that comes from lack of trust from the manager and lack of game time. So although he has had a poor season, I think he's shown enough in the past that he can be a very good fullback, especially defensively. So for his standards, it has been a poor season. Regardless of the other stuff we've mentioned, when he's played, he hasn't played very well. So you have to take your chances as well when you do play, regardless of the position. I would argue, even if he's already shown that he can be very versatile, playing left back, right back. If he's playing right centre back, you have to perform. You have to come in and do a job. But okay. Well, I think we're pretty much in agreement on that one. So let's move on to another summer signing, Naif Aged. Mixed opinions on this one again. What are you guys thinking for his first season at West Ham?
Go on.
I think it would be very generous to call it more than average, in my opinion, just because I've watched him so much previously. I watched him in Liga a lot, and let's not forget a huge part of the season was taken up by injury. And when he has played, he's made more errors in the back end of the season than I think he's probably made in the past 3 or 4 years. It has been a bit painful at times, but towards the back end of the season, he did start to show a lot more promise. Some of the moments that he had as well, even when he was playing poorly, the pace that he possesses and some of the passing as well has definitely shown that there is a hell of a centre back there. It is just a case of applying it. So
I would agree. I think we've seen enough from him to know what type of player he can be. He's had some really outstanding performances for us, but he's also had some very poor and terrible performances, especially in the second half of the season. Obviously, he's had the injury, the World Cup break, a lot of factors, but a lot of individual errors, I would say, which has definitely reduced his rating here. So, I think top of average for now is probably a good place. You guys agree on that before we move on?
I think it's, like you guys say, because of the injury, it's tough to say it's been a solid signing or a solid season. He's shown some fantastic abilities, also shown some clangers. I know people then will probably compare that to Kera and say, well, you put him above Aged, but I do also feel that Kera's had to do it across multiple positions and been parachuted in and out a lot more. So I would say that that gives him a little bit more kudos in this argument. But again, next season, should it be the Aged that me and Slough have watched probably for the last 2 years really in League, and he will be then known as a very much a solid player without a shadow of a doubt, and probably at the top.
I remember in like February time, not even January time, people were saying like, "Oh, Man City are starting to be linked with him and looking at Aged." So the quality's there. We just need to see it more consistently.
And we did pay a big fee as well. So I think that's what pushes it towards average more than anything.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, next up, Angelo Ogbonna. In and out of the team a little bit more than maybe some fans thought he would this season. But what do you guys think?
Average, next.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we can swiftly go on that one.
yeah, love the bloke, but hardly played. So.
No, exactly. It's that, isn't it? Yeah, we all love Angelo. He's been here for years, but I can't sit there and say that he's been absolutely solid.
Yeah, no.
He's been a good player for us, and he's done well for us. But that's it.
Well, this one might have a bit more talking to it, which is Michail Antonio. A very hot debate amongst the West Ham fans about how he is regarded. I've seen some takes recently saying he is more of a legend than the likes of Di Canio in terms of Premier League status. So, what based on just this season, how would you assess it for him? Scored some important goals as well.
Go on, Mike.
Yeah. See, I struggle with this one because his attitude this season, particularly at the start of the season, stunk the place out. To which he was having a really poor season for the first 6 months of the year. Picked up in the last half, so I personally cannot put him any higher than average. I know some people would disagree with that, but he threw his toys out of the pram for the first 6 months of the season. Wanted to leave in January. Once all of a sudden Scamacca was injured and he started playing more, his attitude shifted because all of a sudden he knew he was going to play. And as he said, his motivation was to keep his money rather than keeping the club up. So
does that matter though, Mike, when we're assessing how his season's gone as a player?
Yeah, because as a season, it's been terrible. He's thrown his toys out the pram. He was a disruptive influence in the dressing room. And only when he realised he could have guaranteed first team minutes, he actually pulled his finger out of his arse and played like the Antonio people have been talking about as a legend.
But there's the point. He did that. He did play like that in the second half of the season.
You can't have a terrible shit start of the season disrupting the dressing room and all of a sudden go, yeah, you know what? I feel like I might play now. Oh, yeah, I'm a legend. I deserve to be a solid or an outstanding player. Nah.
I think
not outstanding, no.
I think as well, if you're a centre forward, your job is not just to create goals, it is to score them yourselves. And what did he finish the league on?
I don't know, probably about 8.
But then he also scored some pretty important goals in the Conference League, like quarter-final, semi-final when we were a goal down.
But again, and it's not belittling the Conference League, but the opponents were not good. You know, I wouldn't say that apart from Fiorentina, where, you know, he was pretty anonymous, he did anything special in that competition. It's, you know, a case of he is by a lot of people, he's a great conduit of conversation because, you know, some people love him and some people don't. I think, look, he's a great figurehead, but is he a great player? No. Like, I'm sorry, he has had great performances, but we need a player who up top is going to score 15 plus goals for us. Maybe about that, yeah?
But like, you think about the seasons he had before, he's scored like 10 plus goals in like 3 consecutive seasons, I think.
Yeah, you say plus. Come on.
Yeah. And he got 10 goals and 10 assists one season, didn't he?
Okay, but that's fine if he carries that forward, but he hasn't. And it's just, I mean,
I'm just basing it off this season alone. I think.
Yeah, and so therefore, I would say
start of the season, he was poor. He was very poor. Everyone was very poor, and he just didn't get going. Like you mentioned, Mike, he was disruption, and in January he wanted out. But you can't then ignore the second half of the season where we've won a trophy, and he was a big component in us staying up as well. Big component.
But again,
if we don't have that Antonio, we go down.
Yeah, but you could say, but Ings scored some important goals.
Yeah,
like
what important goal did Ings score other than one against Ghent?
No, against Forest, he got the first 2 goals in between 2 minutes. Scored 2 in 2 minutes.
We would have stayed up regardless of those goals, though.
Well, I could say that about. Well, Forest were around us, so you know you could.
Also,
that
win may have. I know I said we'd win after we beat Bournemouth. We'd have stayed up, which we did basically on points when you look at it. But having said that, had we not got that may have given someone else an impetus. It's all ifs, buts, and maybes.
Okay, but it's not just based on goals, though, is it?
No, but okay then. It's based on
centre forward.
It's based on overall play. It's based on overall commitment.
Yeah, And
that hasn't been good enough. That's
Moyes' system without Antonio collapses. We've seen it.
That's because we've not recruited a striker properly.
That's irrelevant of the point of Antonio's performance.
But it's not because you could put anyone else in that system who suits it, and they could have a great. If Tyrone Moffey had come in January, I bet you he'd have had a better season. But that's an ifs and a but. However, he started the season poorly. He threw his toys out the pram. He went on a podcast and he made some stupid remarks week after week. And he played a few good games, put in a few good performances. I'm not considering that anything more than poor.
I would personally put him top of average or low solid. I don't think he's been poor at all for what he's contributed in that second half of the season, regardless of what he's done off the pitch.
I think when you're getting paid over $100,000 a week and you're the main man, if you're going on a podcast acting like that and then you're basically, not scoring enough, or you're not scoring goals that would put you in any conversation of best strikers in the league. Anyone who thinks that is completely deluded that he would be anywhere in the conversation for a good.
Let's wrap up on Antonio because we got a lot of players.
It's poor, and I don't like saying that, but it's poor.
Mike, where would you put him? I would not put him in poor.
Average, and he's below a Ged. Simple as that. That's just where it is.
I disagree on that, but
this is football. We can all disagree, but the fact of the matter is, he was disrupted influence. He had a terrible, stinking attitude half of the season. Just because he pulled his finger out of his arse for the next half doesn't mean that I should be blowing smoke up his arse, telling him he's wonderful. Simple as that, as far as I'm concerned. Average season. Yes, can you do better? Yes, he scored 14 goals across all competitions, but he banged a lot of those in against basically League One and League Two teams in Europa League Conference.
All right, let's remember this for Skamaka rating when we get onto it. But let's move on. Fabianski, where are you guys putting him?
I'm going to say solid. I'm going to be kind, and my opinion on some of his performances and the choice to make him the number one. But he's put in some great performances. And if I had to sum him up as a keeper, I would say solid. So, I think that's fair.
I'm going to have to go over it. He's made a couple of good penalty saves in games. He's made a couple of good saves. Yes, there has been things that have incredibly annoyed me, especially in the Newcastle game, and others which I do think is questionable. But by and large, this season, when we've had to rely on him, he's done well, bar a couple of exceptions where he has let us down. There are things about his game that I think we have to move on from if we really want to continue, but by and large, he has been solid for us throughout the season.
Okay, we'll keep him in solid. Pablo Fornal is another one that's similar to Ben Johnson, really. Would you say he's had a poor season or maybe a little bit better than that?
I want to say average, but I have to say it's been poor. I know I love Pabs to absolute death, but bar the final, I guess, quarter of the season, though that's the final few games of the season where he actually seemed to get his confidence back, and like the Bournemouth one with the goal he scored there, and that seemed to be the catalyst for him actually kind of regaining some level of self about him.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he struggled all year, and I think again another one who suffered from a breakdown in relationship. And as much as I want to say average, because he was a vital part in the Conference League and level of the league, and it pains me to say it, but
no, I would agree. I think he's been poor. From what we know of, like you mentioned, I love Pablo as well. I think he deserves a lot more credit from our fans, and he deserves a lot more minutes from Moyes. But he has had a poor season. When he has played, he hasn't done particularly amazing, other than those last few games, like you mentioned. So, yeah, I think
he's got quite a few goals. He's ended up about 5-6 goals over the course of the season. So again, it's just like you can still be poor, but you just have these fleeting moments, which is, I think, what our argument around Antonio. I
would as well say though that he has been played out of position. I don't understand how anyone can think he's a left winger, and the problem is that the person who thinks he's a left winger is the one who's picking the team sheet every single week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Yeah, we'll put him in top of the pool for now. Moving on to the skipper, Declan Rice.
He's got only one place, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, terrible.
Arsenal fans should stay away. Arsenal, no one would sit by him.
No, he has been. He's had moments where he hasn't been outstanding, but throughout the course of it, he's been head and shoulders above most of them on the pitch. So, I think without him, we would definitely be relegated. So,
he is. I'm going to say this. He's the best midfielder I've ever seen at the club in my lifetime. Like, with Carrick, Lampard, he's head and shoulders above them for what he's done in a West Ham shirt.
Yeah,
and the performances he's put in.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's the best midfielder because there's Payet, but
Yeah, but Payet,
the best central,
different,
absolutely.
Different.
Yeah. Cool. Another goalkeeper, Areola. How would you assess his season?
I'd say average for me. It's he's
like
not
here
enough, is he? I think you'd probably say above Downs, but I think it's the right position.
Yeah. I'd like to see more of him next season in the league. Hopefully, the rumor is that Areola is going to be shifted to number one in the league. So
I think it's sensible, isn't it? Either you shift him to number one or you sell him. He's on about 130 grand a week. He's spent the last 2 seasons as number 2 to Fabianski.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give him the number 1 job now, you sell him in the summer. In my opinion.
Definitely. Cool. On to the main man of the tier list, Jarrod Bowen.
We know where you want to put him.
I know exactly where I'm putting him, and it's up to you guys to talk me out of it.
Okay, if you're going to factor in last season into this, which is what you've said, this is your I'm.
Stop, I just want to say
by your words
before you say I was joking. He's not been outstanding.
Oh, thank God. I think by his standards, I think it's been average. Like, obviously right at the top of average. But for his performances,
based on his standards and what we've seen of him. But then again, I think he overperformed when we saw him in that season. I think that was him absolutely over, like the maximum of what he could achieve. So this season, although it's been pretty poor, I think this, towards the end of the season, his goal and assist rate was literally pretty much on par with what he was doing before. So, and obviously won us a trophy. So I would say it's a solid season from him personally. But Mike, you think different?
I think he's been distinctly average all season. Yes, he scored an incredibly vital goal. But let's not sugarcoat it. He has been anonymous in quite a few games this season. I'd love to say he's been incredibly solid. I don't think that is the case. I think that's completely disingenuous to say he has been over the course of the season. I understand the argument for saying solid because, again, I think it was he scored 13 goals and 7 assists this season over the course of all competitions. But
it's a good return.
It is, but when
it's also Conference League. 6
of those goals were in the Conference League, and 2 of them were from there. And in the Premier League, it's 6 and 5. You can kind of say, well, if he's only got 6 and 5 in the Premier League, that's 11 goal contributions. Jarrod Bowen's type of player should be at least getting 15 to 20, arguably. So it's kind of.
We can put him top of average. I think that's fair.
I think it's fair. I know people will argue against it, but again, I think our points are the fact that if you didn't factor in the European competition, you would say he's been. I think in some cases you probably say he's right at the bottom of average.
If you do that with Bowen, you have to do the same with Fornals because Fornals scored the winner at Alkmaar. So it's
slightly different, but I get your point.
Exactly.
But it's still an important goal. Yeah. So
I think if you factor in the overall season and the fact that at times he has been one of the most ineffectual players in a lot of games or for large spells of games compared to last year as well, I think you do have to say it's been an average season for him with a fantastic, outstanding end or outstanding moment. But I don't think the outstanding moment elevates him up. Further than where we have.
It'll be interesting to see if the conversation is like this next season if we get Harvey Barnes, because then it'll be 2 Bowens on either side.
which excites me and panics me at exactly
It
the
does.
same time.
Right. Next up, actually no longer a West Ham player, Manuel Lanzini. Poor.
I
Just
don't.
hasn't played.
I feel like poor's harsh because he's not played enough for us to call him
I think
poor.
when he has played, he's not actually done anything bad when he's played. I think he doesn't put him at a lower end of average because in the moments that he's played, he's always looked comfortable. I think he's only probably had one bad game. And I can't even think. I know he's had a bad game this season in the Premier League, but I can't think of the sodding game where he wasn't that great at all. But again, it's another player who's just been shafted.
Just been cut out, isn't he?
He just absolutely cut out. And if you're going to cut a player out like that, you should have sold him in January or let him go.
Yeah.
Rather than.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's,
to be honest, in his last season.
I absolutely loved Lanzini as well. I'm really gutted that he's left, and I'm really gutted for him that he got that injury because such a good player, like the best technical player, obviously other than Pyatt, that I think I've seen at West Ham, recent history anyway. So, bottom of average. I think that's fair considering he hasn't played too much. Another controversial one, I guess, Scamacca. How would you guys assess his first season?
That's it.
I don't think this is controversial. Look,
where would you put it? I would lean towards poor personally.
Yeah, but I would put him in poor, and I don't think that's necessarily. It's not all his fault. There are outside factors to that, and obviously he's adapting to the league, but he's had an injury at a vital part of the season, and also how we've played's not really suited him. So,
but
he has struggled. If we're going to say he's been poor, top of poor, but poor.
If we're going to say he's been poor, then no matter what we say about Cornet, has to be terrible. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but then again, I think that's fair.
I would say it's average all in all, based on a lot of factors. And I'd put him after, say, Antonio, because I think, bearing in mind not playing in a formation and tactic that isn't suited to him, and first season, to have done as what he did for us in those games in the Premier League, I think he's done well. He scored important goals, such as the one against Leeds, against Fulham. He got the goals against Fulham, which has also helped us, in the Premier League.
Do you think his contribution's been higher than Antonio's this season?
I think it's probably even. I mean, if you're gonna say that Antonio's goals were vital towards the end of the season, I think you kind of have to have that same discussion about Scamacca. To be fair,
I think Antonio only scored 2 more goals than him in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And what about the Conference League?
The Conference League. Hang on, let's double check. So in the Conference League, Scamacca scored 5 and didn't even play in the latter stages, apart from against Larnaca, where he came on and scored. So again, he played.
How many did Antonio score in the Conference League?
7.
Yeah, but then Antonio didn't play the early Conference League games when Scamacca did, right? So it kind of balances out.
He did play against the Cypriots, and did he get a hat trick then?
He scored a brace against. That was in the round of 16, though. That was against Larnaca.
But again, Larnaca are a League 2 team, mate. But then
Scamacca scored against Larnaca in the home leg.
Yeah, I know, but again, I'm not bigging up Lanta. I'm not bigging up Scamacca for scoring against Larnaca.
You can't say Scamacca's had a better season than Antonio. That's crazy.
I said average and below Antonio.
I think
no, you said above Antonio.
No, I didn't. I said below Antonio.
All right, well, watch it back, but you definitely said above Antonio.
I think top end of poor, maybe bottom end of average. I think the only thing that really goes against him in my mind is the fee.
Yeah, think about what he was brought in for as well. I'm not saying it's his fault completely.
But
what he's brought in for, a tactic that we don't play. So I'm going to penalise him for the manager not playing him in a tactic.
Yeah.
That he brought him in to play a particular tactic and then didn't play that tactic all season. So I'm going to mark down Scamacca for that. Nah, that doesn't.
I'm marking him down from what I've seen from him and what the expectation was going into this season. That's what my baseline is for him. Like, even though he hasn't played to the system that suits him best, you can still show what you're capable of in those matches.
Yeah, but he has shown glimpses of what he's capable of.
Glimpses, I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. But by large, he's been poor.
Nah.
Yeah, but we could say the same about Antonio, and at least Scamacca's not stinking out the place with his attitude.
questionable, but yeah, sure.
Well,
like,
is he going on podcasts? Is he going around saying that he should be playing for Man City, banging in 30 goals a season? Is he turning around and saying that other players in the team are good, but they're not good enough for a type of Moyes type of thing?
But then, if a quote from Skamaka came out saying, like in a random interview or whatever, he said, "If I played for Man City, I think I'd score 30 goals." Everyone would be like, "Yes, fair enough comment. Like, you've got to back yourself as a striker." Not saying what Antonio did was correct and the time limit was awful, but like, you have to back yourself, surely.
There's a difference between backing yourself and saying that you
self-promotion.
saying something that you know, first of all, is easily provable, easy to prove wrong, and nextly is it's going to get backs up. There's a difference between saying, look, I feel my game is suited to this and I could go to Man City and do well, and then saying I could get 30 goals. It's just not true.
Right, let's move on. Let's move on because we'll be stuck on it all day. But we're just going to leave it there. The comments can decide who is right on that one. Next up, LP, Lucas Paqueta. Again, another one that's had a mixed time so far throughout last season.
Top end are solid.
Yeah, and maybe an argument for outstanding, or does it start to the season later?
I think if certain VAR decisions had gone our way, I think we'd probably be looking at 3 extra points in the league against Liverpool, and that is largely down to Paqueta's performance in that game. We'd probably be saying outstanding, because of his impact in all competitions, but.
Yeah,
he has made the odd mistake or two, and we do have to kind of factor that in. So I'd say top end are solid.
Yeah, I would agree. Kufal, obviously another one that's been in and out of the team with injuries and inconsistencies. How would you assess his season last season?
Again, I'd say top end of average, probably below a dead.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the back end of the season he's been immense.
Yeah, it was, and exactly that's the point, isn't it? We can't just factor in the last part of the season.
Yeah,
we have to look at the whole season, and over the whole season, he wasn't looking good and was almost out the door because he just weren't performing, and it wasn't the Soufal we've seen. So yeah,
he has also been carrying an injury for a long time. So. Yeah. I'd say maybe top end of average, just behind Bowen.
West Ham player injury, shock horror.
I know.
Right, next one, another one that's maybe a little controversial. Said Benrahma. How would you assess it?
Solid, because if it wasn't for him in the early part of the season, we'd have been relegated. Like, he was so important to that first part of the season in keeping us going and keeping us holding some semblance of possession. That had he not been around, I know people go, well, he didn't really score very much, or he only scored penalties. Yeah, but those penalties were not only were they important in keeping us up in the Premier League, it's also vital, like Bowen's goal in securing.
Do you think he's had a better season than Benrahma?
Yeah. But the simple fact is that he hasn't gone missing in every single game. We're like, we're
going to be. My God.
We want to be honest, right? That's dishonest. He always goes for the ball. Who receives the ball more times in our team?
Benrahma. Who scored the winner, though, Mike? Who scored the winner in the final?
Well done.
He didn't go missing, did he?
He did his job and scored the winner. Well,
you need to stop with it. Stop with the Bowen hate.
It's not Bowen hate, mate. It's just the simple fact of the matter is, I'm not going to blow smoke up someone's arse.
I am gonna be the mediator here and calm you children down, but I personally think he's had a better season than Bowen. He came in for a lot of criticism and he's shown his mettle that I think you have to, even if you criticize him and you don't rate him that highly, as many do, if people are as vocal as they are on West Ham Twitter and you still keep performing, showing your mettle, you have to doff your cap to that.
I think they've been pretty similar. I would personally have them both like in solid, but I can see why you put Bowen in average. But yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it like that. Kurt Zouma, again in and out with injuries.
It's annoying. So I want to say solid because whenever he's played, he's been absolutely rock solid.
Yeah.
He's just got knees made of Cadbury's flakes, isn't he? Like,
Yeah,
that's the issue.
I just can't put him in solid because he hasn't played enough and he's been out at vital points. And I think we're discounting again because of injuries. I think you probably have to say he's the very top of average because when he has played, he's been.
I would put him in solid just based on, like, I know he hasn't played an awful lot, but when he's played, we've been like, since he came back and partnered again, we were so much better defensively.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he's had, I don't remember really. I think he made one mistake early on in the season where he let someone through. Yeah. It was Man City or Brighton. But other than that, I think he's been really good.
I'm not his biggest fan. I've said it many times, but I am going to say he was solid. Bottom of solid.
Yeah. Bottom of solid, I think.
No, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Cresswell.
First half season, shocking. Second half, much better. I would say above Downs.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's the same old thing with him. We know we've needed a new left back, and we got a left back who's slightly better and a slightly more athletic, but we still kept playing him, and we were annoyed when he wasn't performing. And yet, people are blaming him for playing football when he's picked. So we all know what he does. I'd say average.
Yeah, I think he definitely improved his performances towards the end of the season. So I think average is pretty fair. Cornet again.
Terrible. We've already had discussion just where we went to Macca. It's nothing against him as a player, it's just the injury. One in 100 possibility, and he gets it and out for 3 months and then not used. So how else can you term his season other than terrible?
No, I would agree.
I feel for the guy, to be honest, but it is what it is, isn't it?
The last two, there's some youth players on here we're not going to do, but the one of them is Craig Dawson that actually played half the season. How would you assess that part of his time as a West Ham player?
Average.
Where are we putting him? Sort of here?
Above a Bonner.
Yeah. He wasn't amazing, was he?
No, his performances did wane somewhat, but he came and did a job, was professional. So
I think he played with an injury as well. So I could just, he wasn't, I wouldn't say necessarily solid, but it was.
I think for us, he's been average. If you're asking a Wolves fan, they put him in outstanding.
Oh yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding.
He's fantastic for them.
I think for us, he was good, but you could see at times his heart weren't necessarily as in it as it was the previous year. But
which is understandable, obviously, given his.
Yeah, exactly. I think he was
situation.
There was a deflation of not being a move materializing. He was professional and everything, but I don't think
he didn't set the world alight, did he?
No, it wasn't the Dawson that we saw last year, who was incredibly. There's no argument other than solid last season. This year, he did a job for us. We then moved him on. He's since done a solid, outstanding job for Wolves. So fair play to him.
Yeah,
and he's won a European medal. So
true. Well, here we have it. This is our tier list of the West Ham players for the 22-23 season. Let us know what you think down below in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be some disagreements here with what we've put.
It's not going to be. It's probably going to be only one agreement, and that is going to be Declan Rice and outstanding. Everything else is going to be contentious, and people are going to have their own opinion on it. We're going to be completely wrong. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, let us know what you think in the comments about the whole tier list. It's been a weird season to assess. I think that's a fair way to put it, but we tried our best with a few differentiations along the way, shall we say. But that's going to be all for today. Make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Hope you enjoyed something a little bit different from the news that we've been posting recently. And I think we're going to leave it there, lads. One thing for us left to say, and that is...
Come on, you irons.